Hello and welcome to my new workshop. Regulars to my channel will know that I love 3D printing and 3D printers. I've covered lots of projects and built printers on my current channel, Lee Smith's Workshop. But if you was to take a look at my other channel, DJ Legion, if you go back to 2016, I was working on DIY MIDI controllers using Arduino, and I wanted to make my own custom buttons. And I decided to look at 3D printing. At the time, I didn't really know that much about 3D printing. I looked around, I saw that there were printers that were way out of my price range for a beginner and something so simple. And then there were lots of kits, and I just wanted to print. I really didn't want to be making kits. I just wanted to work on my project at the time. So for some reason, I decided to import the contents of this box from America, thinking that it was going to be a good idea. I had seen a few videos and a few reviews, obviously knowing now that these things could just be fabricated to sell a product. Recently on the More Fun Making It Discord, I was tagged with some pictures of 3D printers, and this time it was like an old Delta printer and the contents of this box. So by now you must be wondering, what's in the fucking box? So here we go. This is not the exact model. This is the M3D Pro. I had the Micro, but it's basically the same. This is just a little bit bigger. So back in the day, I think I paid £350 for the import of the M3D Micro. And I think I had it for about 2 or 3 weeks before realizing just how bad it was. Selling it, because they were still quite new and there was still a lot of buzz around them, I did get most of my money back. And then just saved up until I had enough money for a FlashForge Dreamer. I think that was around about £800. Looking back at that, that was still quite an advanced printer, with it being enclosed, dual head, and able to print ABS. And I had that for quite a long time, and I was very happy with that. Well, apart from the dual nozzles constantly catching and just only ever using one nozzle. But anyway, so when I first got it, I wasn't quite sure if it was actually doing anything. So I'll go through the steps of my initial setup and we'll see, is it as bad as I remember? So let's get set up and we'll go through the initial setup procedures following the manual and look at the software. So this is the M3D Pro, not the Micro. Basically the movement mechanism is exactly the same. We have a very tiny tool head. It's just basically plastic. We can flip the front off and you see there's a tiniest of fan in there. The extruder is also in there. It's a direct drive, it's not a Bowden. It doesn't clip on particularly well. Then if we look on the X, there is a motor in the back of the tool head, and that is running on gears that runs on the arm that goes across. There are teeth on the back of here, and that's how it moves left to right. So it does have quite a lot of wiggle on there. On the Y, there are belts on either side with a shaft in this corner, and that allows it to move backwards and forwards. On the inside of here, there are 4 lead screws with quite a fine pitch, and I believe that they all run together, and that moves it up and down. I'm just going to pop the back cover off so that we can have a closer look. So now this can come off. We've got some cable strain. So now you can see how the Z works, and that's fed up through the bottom. There are motors on the 4 corners, and then there's a bearing that sits on there that allows this part to move backwards and forwards. If we look inside, we can see the main board on there. That is a custom board. It has an STM32 chip. There's nothing really interesting on there. We may look at that later if we try to do some custom firmware. So that's basically how the printer works. It's very basic. The motion system is not particularly rigid. It is just held together with the plastic covers. So first of all, we need to plug power onto the M3D. It uses a power brick, 9 volt, 5 amps. We first turn it on. It literally looks like it's doing nothing. I noticed that the logo at the front doesn't work. But eventually the LED will come on the tool head. So we plug in USB. The USB installs a basic COM port, and when I first got it, I was curious what we could see. So I installed Prontoface. We see that we've got a COM port. I tried various different baud rates. We'll just try the default for the moment. If we connect, it just says connecting E1, and eventually it will time out. And that's the same for any baud rate. So there must be some kind of handshaking going on with the software. That's a shame. It would have been nice to have been able to get that working. Without the M3D software, it just doesn't do anything. So now it does connect to the printer, and we can go into the settings. So if we go into calibration, we can adjust the bed offsets. We can go into advanced calibration, and we can recalibrate the bed location. If we go into expert diagnostic, so I have done the firmware update. If we do a home, it only homes the X and the Y, and all it does is, no matter what position it's in, it will move far enough that it knows it's in the corner. So if we home it, it just sits there, grinds away for a bit, and then goes back to that corner. We can do a fast recenter, so it moves back, moves over. We can do an X and a Y speed test and a backlash print. We go into the heated bed. We can turn the heater on and off, and it displays the state. The heated bed is plastic, and there must be some just like copper. We'll have a look at that in a second. We can view what's on the SD card. There is an SD card connected up to the board. At the moment, there's nothing on there, but I believe this has to be drip fed G-code. So when we're printing from this software, I believe this software is constantly downloading, and if we was to disconnect the laptop, it would stop. We can look at G-code, and we can actually see what's going on. And then we've got basic controls where we can move it. So we can move the X plus 10, minus 10, Y. We've got options to move the extruder, and then the Z. So if we move the Z up 10, it really doesn't sound happy. And then down. So everything does appear to be moving. We go into filament options. It's constantly warning us about stuff. We can set up custom temperatures. So the way that it was made is to work with their own from print3d.com. This is Tough 3D ink. I've no idea if this is supposed to be PLA or not, but you can see that is like licorice TPU style stuff. If we look in the Pro and Micro features, so they've got development features, single point bed height calibration, multi-point automatic bed calibration, possible untethered printing, so like I say, it needs a laptop, and heated bed control. No motion recovery, no power outage. But you'll also note that these are all development features. None of them are actually available. So if we go back to calibration, advanced calibration, and we do a recalibrate bed location, it literally just dives the print tool as far down as it will go. Not quite sure what it's doing at this time. It's possibly heating something up, but it doesn't tell us. And now it's calibrating the printer. Do not disconnect the printer from the computer or unplug it. Please keep the printer extremely still without vibrations or tilts. It may be silent for up to a minute or more at a time, but it's still calibrating. So you notice that the tool head is just moving down. It goes down physically as far as it will go, where it's pushing down on the bed. Makes awful noises. And then it comes up a little bit. So just like where we're homing on the X and the Y, it's going down mechanically as far as it will go. Doesn't really care what's there. So printer calibration has completed. We can now do bed height offset. So if let's take a quick look at the bed. So the bed is plastic. It has this part on the back with copper connectors. It's really flexible. So let's give that a clean. Okay, I have some 3D lac. Give that a quick spritz. So now this pushes back in. It's terrible. So it goes in so far and then it clips forwards so that it fits on the lip just there. I have some PLA that's been in one of these DIY dry boxes for a while. If we just feed this in, we pop the front off. We've got a little feeding thing. If we go on to basic controls, turn the heater on. So we've got the temperature and it should be going up to, I don't know, around about 220. You'll see that there's no fan going on there as a heat break. So we're almost up to 200. I don't know if there is any PID tuning on this. So it's giving us back control, so it's sitting around 220. Now if we do an extrude on the extruder, it's gripped it. It's loading. Let's do a 10. So it is pulling the filament in. We've got that nasty stuff coming out that was already in there.
A few moments later.
So we have successfully loaded some filament. I've no idea where our first layer is going to be. Let's just do a print. So if we open a model, so we've just got a Benchy and a Nero cube. Let's do the Nero cube. So this is our interface. We can scroll around and everything. Move, resizing, rotate, display a list of objects, duplicate, remove, undo, save successful print. So it still thinks that it's got the tough 3D ink at 220 degrees. I'm just going to leave that as it is and then print. Print quality, we've got fast print, high quality and a very fast print. So fast print and a high quality insert. Use support material, automatic untethered printing. Use wave bonding, use raft, enable skirt. Use heated bed, reprobe bed, but we don't have a probe. Let's try it anyway and print. So 1 hour 35 minutes. A new job has started. Please do not unplug your printer. So it's home to the corner. It's trying to probe the bed, I guess. It's making awful noise and just moved it down as far as it will go, but the bed flexes. I love that homing. And this was a problem with the M3D Micro, was it would constantly dig a hole in the middle of the bed. It was so annoying. So it's still saying that it's warming up. Okay, so it's done a little purge at the side. Wow, it's actually printing. I guess that's the skirt. So it looks okay at the back part, but like possibly that it's too low at the front. I'm genuinely amazed that it's actually printed. Maybe the Pro was actually better than the Micro, and they did fix some things. I guess we let it print. So that's 4% with 1.5 hours to go.
207 inches of filament later.
It makes awful noises. And it's finished. So that is on there quite well. So let's get this out of the way and take a closer look at this cube. Okay, here we have our Nero cube. I'm not sure if that is supposed to be a raft on the first layer, or if it just did really thick lines. It doesn't, I'm not sure. You can see that it's smoother on the back than at the front. I'm guessing that's where how close the bed was. If we look inside, we can see the bridging going across, which actually doesn't look too bad. This is the face that we were viewing as we were printing, and it looks awful. So this is the face that's moving across the X, and we can see artifacts going across that pretty much match up with the size of the teeth on the X axis. So that's moving a little bit as it's moving across those teeth. Obviously we've got this split going all the way around. I'm wondering if that is related to the lead screws. Maybe they've got some dirt at that point. So that's the side where we've got the belts, and the artifacts are a lot smaller on this side, so the belt is doing a better job compared to these marks here. I don't know if they're showing up on the camera. So yeah, you can see them there, and they look a lot finer on that side. If if we look at the top is not too bad really. But yeah, lots and lots of problems on this print, but it finished. And it was the first print, so that's pretty good. It did a lot better than I actually thought that it would. So now off camera, I'm going to try and work a few things out, mainly the bed leveling, because I know how that works, and I'll lubricate and try and get the rails working as best as I can. Just spend a bit of time with it, and then we'll come back and try another test print. Okay, we're just doing a little bit of fine tuning. This is what I mean about it homing. So it doesn't, the minute it doesn't know where it is. If I home it, it just goes over there and it rumbles and rattles until it knows that it's moved far enough to be in the home. If we move it, we can't move it now because the motors are engaged. If we start our homing from this far corner, it will move to that corner, but it doesn't rattle as long. So basically the homing is, I move far enough to know that I've got to that far corner like I thought. So I've also worked out how to do the bed leveling. So I'm going to put my paper in. Let's go to our basic controls. And I'm going to move the Z down just enough until it grips. Okay, so it's not letting me go any further down than that. So now if we do our calibration and we move to the center, we can drop that down a little bit. Drop it down 0.1, apply, and then move to the center again. We're now starting to grip the paper, so move it down a tiny bit more and apply. Move to center. So now we're gripping that a bit more. Now if we work around our corners, I've gone around and I've adjusted these. So that's gripping a little bit too tight. I'm going to move that up 0.5, click apply. Let's go over to the other side. Move that up a little bit, click apply, go back over. And we just keep adjusting and clicking apply and then moving to the same spot.
Lots of clicking later.
Okay, so I'm quite happy now that all of those points are set up okay. I'm going to put some super lube on the lead screw parts. Okay. I don't know if we can put any on this part with it being toothed. So I'm going to do a Cali cube. That should be nice and quick, and we'll see how that goes. I've loaded in the Cali Dragon. Let's do a print. I'm going to turn off the heated bed because I don't think it's worth doing. Let's see what options we've got on here. Okay, we can choose some options. So layer thickness, 0.2. We've got a flow adjustment. Let's set that to 99%. Extrusion width. Initial, yeah, there we go. 0.8. 0.2. Enable combing, minimum layer time. Cool head lift. Shell, 4 shells, 5 and 5, sparse, infill line distance, infill pattern. Let's do lines, no support, speed, initial speed layers, 20. So we're not printing a raft. Retraction amount, retraction speed, use automatic fan settings. Okay, so let's print that. So this Pro version definitely has a lot more options than the Micro. So now I would say we are way too close to the bed. Well, there's no way to adjust the settings on the fly. So it's just a matter of adjusting those settings. So it looks like it's going to be okay, just a little bit close. Let's stop the recording and I'll try and set up a way to record it that's not on the 4K camera, because it's just going to eat up the SD card. We've got a couple of minutes left and this actually looks a lot better. It's still not great, but it looks better. Curious if that line is in the same spot. So I reduced the layer height from 0.3 to 0.2. 0.3 wasn't even the lowest setting on the slicer, it was crazy. And we've lowered the flow down 1%, so it's at 99%. And again, no real calibration, but that will definitely help. And a few little tweaks. And then the lubrication on the bearings and the lead screws. So let's get that off. So I didn't put the heated bed on this time. The bottom is a little bit squashed, but we don't have those huge first layers. So we still have a lot of artifacts on the prints. And that line is at the same spot. So we must have something that's messing up the lead screw at that point. So I'll probably need to clean those properly. But overall, that's not a bad Cali Dragon. I'll take some close-up pictures. In my opinion, this is definitely better than the Micro. It's actually completed 2 prints. The Nero Cube at 0.3, which looks awful. The the Kali Dragon at 0.2, which looks better. I'll put some pictures up on the screen. Mechanically, I think it needs some lubrication a bit more, and there's some spots on the lead screws which are causing a line. So I'll try and get those cleaned up, and then I'll spend a bit more time with it off camera and try and see how far I can push it and get a reasonable print, or if it's just basically rubbish and it's not worth trying. I feel like I've had more success with this than I did with the micro. Definitely better than the micro. Although the heated bed isn't really doing anything, it was only heating the back up, so that's no real advantage. But the build surface feels better than whatever the build tack stuff that was on there. And we did work out how to do the bed leveling in the software. That wasn't too difficult in the end. And yeah, and what I would still, my ultimate goal would be getting Clipper on this if possible. I can program the board. I do have an STM programmer, and the chip on the board is supported. That would be easier than trying to put in a new board because this runs at 9 volt. So I don't know how the 9 volt would work with those newer boards, specifically the heaters. Most of those are made to work at 12 volt. I guess it's worth a try. It's not really do any damage to anything at the end of the day.